That off here, and then we'll just pull that wire right off. Just gonna pull them up and out of our way. Then we're gonna need to come over to the side and use our pliers to disconnect that little piece there. It's held into that bracket. Okie dokie, guys. Now I'm just gonna reach in here with these pliers, and let's see. I'm just gonna squeeze right here, and oh yeah, let's just bend the bracket all to pieces. There we go. So now we can go ahead and pull our wire out of the way. And now it's time to remove our starter and put in the new starter. And I'm just gonna bend this bracket back to where it's supposed to be. Like so. Alright, let's replace that starter. Okay guys, now due to certain limitations, I'm only going to be able to show you exactly where each bolt is. Now, the first bolt is going to be right over there. It's kind of orange, and we can see that piece over there with the rubber piece. It's going to be close to that piece. So hopefully you can see it's now in the corner of the screen. It's now in the other corner of the screen. I can't point to it because I'm using both hands. It's now in the center of the screen. Now our other bolt, it's going to be located right over there. It's going to look long and funny. So I'm going to zoom in on it there for you. That's our other bolt. It's long and funny. So those are the two bolts. And here in just a second, I'll just let you know what size bolts they are so you can go ahead and take those off. Guys, now the funkier longer one is going to be a 14mm bolt, and the one that's down below there is going to be a 17mm. I'm just catching them right there in the corner. It's going to be a 17mm bolt. So those are the sizes, and if you're doing it the way I'm doing it, and let me get this a little bit darker there for you, what you want to do is go ahead and just kind of lift this up, and you can reach around those wires to get to that 17mm bolt, and then you should be able to get to that 14mm one just by sticking your hand through there and getting your socket or wrench in there. Okay, and I didn't want to leave you guys completely in the dark, so here's how I positioned my ratchet and socket on that lower 17mm bolt. So you can set up something like that and you should be able to take that bolt off. And then here in a second I'll show you how I position the socket or wrench on the other side. Okay guys, and I almost forgot to show you that last bolt coming out, and you don't want to use an air ratchet or an electric ratchet, but after I broke it loose, that's about what it looked like. You can see you just go ahead and set your ratchet up like there, right there, and you're not gonna have any problems. So now I've got both bolts out. That one's still sitting in there, the other one's out, but all I gotta do is actually physically pull that one out, and I'll show you me here just pulling the starter out so you can see what that looks like. Okay guys, so we've disconnected all of our connectors and we've got the two bolts out, so now I'm just gonna pull this guy right out and hopefully we don't have any trouble. Don't think we should. And there we go, just gonna come out right here. And there we go. So there's your starter. We got them out. Now I'll just kind of show you the procedure of putting everything back together and let you know anything important that you'll need to know for putting everything back together. Alright, now before we go ahead and put our new alternator in, well first I'm going to go ahead and cut this thing off, but we want to compare our two alternators. Now we can see here that this old alternator has a bracket here and this one doesn't have the bracket, so obviously we're going to go ahead and just take this guy off and set him on our new alternator. So he just comes off right like that, and wow, look at that, it's quite a long bolt. So I'm going to do that, and then I'll just take this guy right off. Looks like he's off, so we'll just go ahead and put our new bolt on right here and just set him up there. It's about what he wants to look like, so we'll just go do this. And we're also going to be checking to make sure, there we go, we're also going to make sure that all of our electrical connections look identical. We can see that they're in the exact same place, and we've got the same male connectors here, and we've got the same type of setup here, so I'm just going to turn them around and just observe everything. We even have the same little thing right here. I'm not really sure what that's for, but it's there on both of them. It may be some kind of moisture discharge area. And I'm just looking at the guys here, they look similar as well. And obviously you're going to want to make sure the bolt holes line up, which they do obviously. So this is the same alternator, you just need to make sure that's the same thing, because if not, we're definitely gonna have some problems when we go to reinstall your new alternators. So now we'll look up under the engine bay again and we'll go ahead and put this new guy in. Okay guys, now since you are suspecting that you do have starter problems since you're changing your starter, it's also a good idea to just go ahead and check, look inside that circle that your starter came out of, and just make sure those gears look like they're in good condition as well, because that can also cause you some starter problems. So just inspect it with a flashlight there, and just a brief inspection is all that's needed, because most of the time it is just your starter. Alright, so after I've removed my nut there, I'm going to go ahead and reach down in here and set my new starter into place. And just remember, those connectors are going to be setting on top. So in case you forgot how it's supposed to go back in, it's pretty easy to remember there. So I'm just going to stick them back on in there. And I'm sure you probably can't see what I'm doing. I'll be able to figure that out here soon enough, but you're just gonna stick him back in there until he's flush with your transmission, and then I'll go ahead and take one of my bolts here and just stick him in there and get him started, and then we'll run both our fasteners back in there. Okay guys, now we've got our new starter setting in there, and the way I was able to get either of this bolt started is what I did was I started the smaller bolt first, and I held the starter in my left hand while I kind of started that other bolt with my two left fingers there. And I also, when I first got it flush, I used both hands to kind of get it flush, and I kind of held my left hand on there and then did what I just described to you. So that's how I was able to get that bolt started. You may find an easier way, or you may be able to do it differently, but that's kind of a good place to get you started there. Now, once you've got those two bolts tightened down, you want to make sure they're good and tight. Just don't over tighten them, because I'm pretty sure that transmission is aluminum, so you could potentially damage that, and you don't want to do that. But now we'll go ahead and get our connectors connected back up. I'll start by just clicking that connector back in, and then we'll stick our little connector here over the thing and put the nut on, and we'll plug our female connector back into the male connector on the starter. Okay, now once you've got your electrical connectors all hooked back up, we're going to go ahead and put our guy back on here. And don't forget to hook your hoses back up. We got this one hose that goes right here. We're just going to put him on right there. So we're now going to lower this guy back into his home area. And I'm just thinking in my mind here, I'm double checking, making sure I don't put this thing back on without forgetting something. So alright guys, so basically I'm pretty sure we got everything back on there. If I missed something, I'm sure you'll be seeing an edited clip slipped in here somewhere to let you know what I missed. But anyways, one thing I want to mention too is this intake gasket. If for any reason when you put everything back together you're having some new problem, some kind of idle problem, what'll probably happen is there's probably a problem with this intake gasket. And a lot of times when you break this connection right here, we are going to replace the intake gasket. So, but for the sake of just putting everything back together, this intake gasket should work just fine. So I'm going to go ahead and just pick this guy up and set him on there. Then I'm going to start my two nuts and put my 3 bolts in there, and we'll get this intake manifold connected and tightened and snugged up. Okay guys, now I went ahead and just started all my fasteners. I'm just going to run them down, and then I'll show you about how tight you want them exactly. It doesn't have to be 100% perfect. It'll still work just fine. We can get them all back together here. So now I'm going to show you about how tight you want to do it. And we're going to want to do this in order. And give me just a moment here. I'm going to need an extension. Alright, and I'll start with this one right here. So I'm just going to, he's going to get snug down. And then I'm just going to come right about there. And I also just want to see we're getting everything there. And now I'll go from there to this guy right here, and I'll just go ahead and make sure he's snug down, and I'll come to the one, we'll do this guy right here, and I'll make sure he's snug down, and then that guy snug down, and then this guy again. There we go. So they're all snug down really well, and I'm gonna put just a little extra oomph on it just to make sure they're torqued on there good. And we're working with aluminum, so you do want to be careful. You don't want to put so much force that you're gonna tear stuff up. So just right about there, right about there, there, And there. So I know all those are nice and tight, and I started back at that first one to make sure it didn't get any looser, and that's it. So that's how you torque them on there, so to speak, without a torque wrench. You just want to make sure they're good and tight, but not over tight. So kind of like what you saw me there, you should be able to apply that same kind of force. Okay guys, and the next thing you'll want to do is go ahead and put that bolt in that we took off that was connected to the bracket down here at the bottom. You go ahead and tighten that thing up, and then what you'll want to do is we'll go ahead and hook up this connector. And this is one of those things you might have been able to done when the manifold was still apart or whatever. It might have been a little bit easier. So we can, oh, and I'm sorry, it's not that connector. I'm pointing at the wrong one here. We're digging a little bit deeper. It's going to be right down there. So, and you want to connect that connector, and if you notice, there's a metal bracket mount for the connector, so you just plug them together, and then that connector will just slip onto that mount, so the connector won't be bouncing around. Then we're going to come back up top here, and we'll look at some more connectors and hoses that we need to plug back up. Alright guys, now I'm just going to briefly put everything back together and point everything out. And a quick amendment on the last thing I said, you do need to make sure that you take the female part of the connector and connect it to that little metal mount, or once you plug the two connectors up, you're not going to be able to reach to stick it on the mount. So then you mount the female connector, and then you plug the male connector into the female connector with it mounted to that metal mount. And it might be female, male, vice versa, but you get the gist of what I'm saying. So like I said, I'm just gonna go ahead and start hooking stuff up here. So we have this little electrical connector we need to hook up, and let's see, we got some stuff we need to hook up here. We've got a hose that needs to go here, so I'm gonna go ahead and plug him back on there, and I'll grab some pliers here too, help me put this hose clamp back on there. Just gonna stick him back on there, and I try and put him back on the way it's kind of made into the thing. That should ensure a better seal. And then I'm gonna set my guy back down here, and also I'm gonna reach for, let's see, there's our coolant thing. We've got the other large connector. He's sitting right here. I don't know if you can see him, but it's the largest connector. He goes back there near the throttle plate, so I'm going to plug that guy in. See, we've got another air hose right here. I'm going to stick him in on, and if you can remember, this is the one that fooled me. I thought it was the coolant hose when it really wasn't. And so I'm just going to, and the strategy we used, if you don't remember, taking this thing off, was you pull on the one side, and then we're going to pull on the other side, and we're just going to pull it back and forth until we get them back down there where it's sitting on its home again. And I really need a much better pair of needle nose pliers. I'll probably be getting those today, because you've probably heard me say it in the past as well, and it's true, I need to get them. So I'm going to work on that, because really it causes you to lose time if you don't have the right tool for the right job. And alright, there we go. So that's about on there, as good as it needs to be. That'll work just fine. I'm very happy with that. I'm going to try and see if I can't squeeze these to make a little bit better of a seal here. That's about as good as they're going to get, so that makes me happy. I'm happy with that. Now we're going to go ahead and make sure everything's looking good here. This was the coolant line. I'm just going to pull this guy out. I'm going to twist and pull, cover him up, stick him back on there without pouring out too much fluid. Then I'll grab my pair of pliers, wherever they may be, right here. I'm just going to go ahead and get this hose connector back right on there, like so. And I'll move him just a little bit so he's kind of back there where it kind of looks like it was. And I think we've got just about everything hooked up. We didn't disconnect that other hose back there, so that's fine. And we've also got a bolt, if you can remember, and I want to make sure you see what I'm talking about here. We'll move the camera. Alright, and I just moved the camera around a little bit here, and like I was saying, we have the bolt here. It looks kind of like that. It's going to be 10 millimeters, and it's going to hold these electrical connectors in, and it looks like it's going to be fun trying to stick on there. and it is just a little bit, so we're just going to get them worked on there. And I'm just going to use my 2 fingers here to kind of tighten them in, and you'll just want to go ahead and snug them all the way down there. And I'm going to do that, but just for the sake of continuing the video, I'm going to try to make it get a little bit quicker here. We're going to come over here, we'll zoom out a little bit, and now we'll go ahead and take our air filter. It's a nasty air filter. I'm going to see about having this guy get it replaced. We're going to go ahead and set that down in here. Our nice little bolts here just kind of sit there so we didn't lose them. And we're going to set this guy back down on there. Take our piece here, and this will just kind of work back into this piece right here. And we got the 2 things that are going to work back in there. And it's actually got a bit of a hose clamp, so I'm just going to squeeze it. I'll set it off to the side there while I'm doing this. That'll help it go back in there, and just be careful because this stuff is plastic. You don't want to break it. So I'm going to set our little hose guy there, and that's all connected back together well. We'll stick this guy back on there, and we may want to loosen that clamp up just a little bit, and we'll go ahead and plug this guy. Let's see. Yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and stick that back on and tighten that back up. Now you're just gonna want to look and make sure all your connectors are plugged back in. We also have this other bolt set right here, and this is where we're gonna plug in to our piece right here, and it's gonna be a 10mm. And I'm gonna take my fast guy here. I'm gonna put an extension on, and like I was saying, I was putting my extension on here, and then I'm just gonna reach down in here, and I'm just gonna set them all down in there. And there we go, snugged on. So we got all our stuff pretty much hooked back together, and give me just a moment. I'm gonna double check everything, and I'll get back to you to make sure you haven't missed anything when putting everything back together. Alright, so I did a good look over, and everything's pretty much back together. Just make sure to reconnect your battery and tighten down these 4 little screws or bolt heads, whatever you want to put it on there, and make sure you get your air tube hooked up and all the connectors that I showed you that I hooked up. And then also don't forget your piece right here. We'll set this guy back on, and we'll run these little nuts back on. And then also, if it's not your car, which I'm sure it probably is, but just make sure you go ahead and reset your little radio stations. And so I'm gonna just go ahead and put this guy back on here, and this pretty much concludes today's video. So I thank you guys for watching, and I guess if you want, you can watch me put these things back here. Some of you guys who may just want to see it. I had somebody in the comments ask me to make a video showing how to replace lug nuts, so that's why I would actually show you this, because some people are, I guess they want to see exactly everything. So go ahead and put these back on. There we go. So that concludes today's video. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. Oh, and one thing I almost left out, just make sure you put your dust shield below back on. Those little plastic clips, you just push them on in there and then snap them in. That's how it works. And the 10mm bolts, you just bolt them on up in there. So, okay, that's it now. So thanks for watching. See you next time. Thanks for watching, guys, and don't forget to subscribe so you can catch all my new videos, which publish Mondays and Fridays at 9 a.m. Pacific Time, 10 a.m. Mountain Time, 11 a.m. Central Time, 12 p.m. Eastern Time, and I will see you then.